Hey everybody, it's Windfall ASMR, and I still know what you did last summer, but I don't care because I'm not a narc. So, you got a friend in me, buddy. Welcome back to my channel. On today's episode, we have more Five Below Bookery. Today we have um, Totally Sweet 90s. So, as someone who was a child of the 90s, and I don't have a great memory, but I do have a great memory for useless pop culture and things that will bore the crap out of 90% of people at dinner parties. So, if you are like me and you dig on the nostalgia and you're probably much more of a child than your chronological age indicates, then come, let's hang out. Let's check out this book together. So, for today's video, I thought we would just maybe read a few pages, a couple chapters. I don't know. Maybe I'll do some commentary if I remember anything, if it rings any memories, and we'll have a good time together and hang out, reminisce, chill, soft spoken ASMR style. So, anyways, let's get started. I never know how to end these intros. It's weird. It's weird to transition, from one thing to the next. But, anyways, wipe, 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 or star, fade out. See you in a bit. Okay, everybody. We're gonna shoot this lo-fi style. So pretend it's 2007. You just saw Ronsky Whispers eat an entire rotisserie chicken with her bare hands, like the legend she is. And we're hanging out. We're reminiscing about the 90s. So we got Totally Sweet 90s. Awesome, bro. There's a cassette tape. I also have many fond memories of cassette tapes. In fact, I used to mix my own mix cassettes, recording songs off the radio. Was that illegal? I don't know. Kind of in a gray area. Anyways, here's the foreword for it. Mr. Dewey gives Totally Sweet 90s an A+. Should be on the required reading list for all Baysiders. But don't worry, no need for caffeine pills, Jesse. Each page is a delightful reminiscence of that sometimes glorious but all too often ignominious look-it-up slacker decade that polished off the 20th century. Patrick O'Brien, actor from Saved by the Bell. Well, that is a bizarrely random forward, and I don't think he read this book, so not a promising sign so far. But hey, you know what? I don't judge. Let's see what they got. The Totally Sweet 90s. From clear cola to Furby and grunge to whatever the toys, tastes, and trends that defined a decade. Looks like we got Gail Fashingbauer Cooper and Brian Belmont as authors. And they have dedications. Here's the first chapter. Kids of the 90s Unite. And I might just read some of it and jump around, so we'll see how it goes. We know you've spent a lifetime celebrating the nostalgia of older generations. Every other week, a magazine cover remembers the enormous social changes of the 1960s. A shaggy 1970s band goes on tour. A hideous fashion trend of the 1980s returns. That's all well and good, even if jelly shoes haven't gotten any more comfortable in 30 years. But maybe you still smile when you hear someone mention the Oregon Trail, or when you find your old Lisa Frank notebook in your mom's closet. Or maybe you get sucked into watching the entire Big Lebowski every time it pops on cable. Or you can't bear to throw away your cassette tapes, even though you haven't owned a tape player for years. There's nothing wrong with holding fond memories of your own chosen decade, even if you still can't figure out why Urkel was ever popular. The reason we wrote this book, and its 1970s and 80s themed predecessors, is that we believe that the lost toys, tastes, and trends of an era do more than just remind us of what we liked as kids. They tell us a lot about who we were then. Ooh, I screwed that up. They tell us a lot about who we were then and who we are today. You can't figure out where you're going until you understand how you got there. Well, I certainly have a fondness for the Oregon Trail, playing that in elementary school during computer time. And I remember that I was just as bad as the settlers in real life who killed all the buffalo. You only could carry back 200 pounds, and yet I would always try to kill 2 to 3,000 pounds because it was fun. You know, as a child, you do dumb things, and in retrospect, I guess it does teach you a lesson about how that could occur if people get a little trigger happy. Anyways, they also mentioned Lisa Frank and The Big Lebowski, Urkel, of course, the breakout star of Family Matters, and Jaleel White also was a big star because he was the voice actor for Sonic the Hedgehog. So, huge star of the 90s. And they end up with the sentiment about thinking about where you are and where you're going. Certainly, as I have grown up, I have realized if you do want to get introspective, it is interesting to think about your taste and why you think you like what you do and what ignites your passions and what interests you about different writers or performers or thinkers or, I don't know, politicians, radio hosts. What draws you to people? What connects you with your friends, your family, your partner, yourself? All these things you think about as you get older. What did they say? You are maybe maybe this is a good reason I am getting older. It's because I blank on things. You are wise to old too soon, wise too late. Old too soon, wise too late. I think that was the expression I was looking for. I literally looked for it for 30 seconds. I'm sorry. I'll edit that out. Okay. Anyways, let's look at the next page. Sir, each decade is technically just 10 years, but we feel confident saying that the 20th century seemed to gain speed as it neared its end. Starting in the 1990s, technology jumped on a roller coaster fast track that changed everything. And I think we know where we're going here. We've read enough think pieces in the New York Times and Vulture to understand the huge significance of technology and the internet on our lives. I think we're well aware. Anyways, Adam Sandler songs on Saturday Night Live. This is a strange place to start, but Adam Sandler was a huge deal in the early 90s, which is a little before my time, but when I was getting into later elementary and middle school, Adam Sandler started becoming a huge movie star. If you guys remember Billy Madison, I think that was his first breakout, where he went back to elementary school and went through all elementary and high school so he could take over his father's company. And hijinks ensue. The Adventures of Pete and Pete. This was also a little before my time. Slightly before my time. I believe this was a Nickelodeon show. It was an oddball offering about school, suburbia, and subversion. Little Pete was an anti-authority nut with a tattoo of an adult woman, Petunia, on his forearm. The boy's mom had a metal plate in her head. They hung out with the neighborhood hero, Artie, who described himself as the strongest man in the world. Luscious Jackson played at their prom, and it kept getting weirder and better than 99% of anything else on TV. In the immortal words of Little Pete, read it and weep, fungus lick. Ooh, that sounds dirtier than most swear words I've heard. Maybe I should go back and check out Adventures of Pete and Pete. It seems to have been a perhaps revolutionary style of comedy for its time period. Maybe that's overstating it, but seemed to be influential. America's Funniest Home Videos. Oh boy, sorry, I had to scratch my nose and the page went flying. No, that's the type of quality you can get here in this channel and you can expect, so I hope you enjoy. Anyways, America's Funniest Home Video. When I was growing up, this was hosted by Bob Saget, who recently passed away, tragically. But he was the dad on Full House, so he was a huge star. Back then on network TV, most people only had like 6 channels, so he was a huge star on 2 of the biggest shows. America's Funniest Home Videos, where people literally sent in videos of themselves, like it says here, getting smacked in the groin, or their kids cussing, well, not cussing, they would bleep that out, but doing something silly or breaking stuff around the house. And pretty much led to 90% of YouTube and TikTok today. So much props to them. American Gladiators. Oh, I think this might be in alphabetical order. I think that explains the how nothing seems to really transition from one thing to the next. Okay, American Gladiators. This was a TV show where a bunch of athletes, I've actually remember watching this a few times, would take on average Joes in competition. And the men and women who were just average people would see how well they would do. Most times they would get absolutely demolished, which was part of the fun and appeal. But sometimes they would actually win, or a lot of times they would just try and see who could last the longest in different competitions. So that was a good one. Good one when you're sick from school and you want to spend some mindless hours. Andrew Dice Clay, the Dice Man. Oh boy. Well, I am a big fan of stand-up comedy, and he is one of the most polarizing figures, you could say, in stand-up. Let's read a little. Hickory dickory dock. Trust us. You don't want to hear the rest. With jet black sideburns slashed across his cheeks and a cigarette permanently dangling from his lips, shock comic Andrew Dice Clay shot to national attention in 1988 with the stand-up comedy versions of nursery rhymes so obscene they'd make Mother Goose lose her tail feathers. He'd punctuate every punchline with a delighted, "Oh!" like he couldn't believe he'd said it. The Brooklyn-born comedian quickly gained a rep as a rude, crude misogynist, sparking protests from every possible angle. MTV banned him and his leather jacket for life in 1989 when he let loose a few of his expletive-packed poems on the MTV Music Video Awards. Oh boy. MTV banning people for life for obscenity is... what's worse than pot calling the cauldron black? Anyways, Andrew Dice Clay, objectively not funny by today's standards. I don't think any real person who likes intelligent comedy could listen to him and think he's funny, but highly influential for his time, groundbreaking, not in the ways that George Carlin was, where he's actually risking life and limb, or Andy Kaufman. But for a mainstream audience in the 90s pushing obscenity boundaries, I'm always for people bucking against the system and giving a little fuck you to society's standards for what you can say, because in retrospect, his poems were sillier than they were anything to be terrified of um, for society. I don't think the Dice Man's popularity changed the course of American history for the worse. It's just an interesting and bizarre footnote, like Larry the Cable Guy. All right, the Arch Deluxe. Oh boy, this was a McDonald's burger that was viewed as the burger for grown-ups, and it had a peppercorn sauce. So they sold it as something fancy. I remember eating it once. It was delicious, but they quickly got rid of it because it didn't sell. People don't want to go to McDonald's for a fancy meal. You know, if you're like me, you want to go to McDonald's because you're sad and you're eating your feelings, or there's nothing else to eat and you're starving because you are drunk and it's 2 a.m. You know, this might have been in my earlier years. You don't go there because you're rolling out the red carpet and you're celebrating a promotion at work. These are not reasons to go to McDonald's. Anyways, let's see. Austin Stories. I have no idea what Austin Stories is. Let's read about it. Only 12 episodes of Austin Stories were ever shown, but viewers too lazy to turn off MTV after The Real World ended discovered the 1997 to 98 show and made it a cult classic. Texas comics Brad Chip Pope, Howard Kramer, and Laura House played three friends of various degrees of slackertude. Sounds like an interesting little indie comedy on MTV. Never heard of it. Maybe I'll keep an eye out for it if I ever see anything about it or a retrospective. Baby Got Back. Well, you can't even read those words without saying it with that rhythm. Sir Mix-a-Lot likes big butts, and he cannot lie. Well, he and many of us appreciators of that sort of thing can't blame the fella. And we believe him. Yes, we do. He said it with a lot of conviction, that Sir Mix-a-Lot. Baby Got Back, of course. Huge hit. Gigantic hit. Kind of a novelty song, but that's what made it fun. Definitely made it a lot more common for rap to be played on MTV too, and hip hop, which is a win. Which is a win in my books. More diversity for music. Babysitters Club books. I did not read any of these. I know that there were several thousand of these apparently made because I've seen hundreds of these at yard sales, all with different covers. So, let's read about it. Did every girl who read the Babysitters Club books try to organize their own version of the group? Did anyone succeed? Sadly, our friends were neither as industrious nor as kid competent as Christy, Claudia, Marianne, Stacy, and the rest of the Anne M. Martin's characters. And what kind of neighborhood did they live in where parents burned up the phone lines during 1.5-hour period trying to book preteens to babysit? When we kids tried the same thing, the only time the phone rang was with a wrong number. So I guess the premise is that these kids in the books are awesome babysitters, super responsible kids. And yeah, I don't know what else they do. Let's read more. Moms preferred Babysitters Club to Sweet Valley High because the babysitters weren't boy crazy. But that doesn't mean the books didn't tackle issues. From diabetes, or diabetes, as Wilford Brimley would say, to divorce, to detesting Jim, the sitters grappled with all kinds of kid angst. Yet at the core of the group was a deep love and a loyalty that rang true. Middle school can be agony. If you couldn't find a solid pack of pals in your school lunchroom, you could at least read about one. And oh, the fashions. Quirky Claudia led the way, but all the girls had wardrobes that seemed alternately droll-worthy and disastrous. Red sneakers covered with beads and glitter, denim jumpsuits, Well, those are making a comeback, aren't they? Purple harem pants paired with green leotard and red belt. Good thing it wasn't Fashion Designers Club. Wow. These authors roasted the hell out of these Babysitters Club kids. By the way, this fashion sounds dope as hell, and I would totally like to get dressed with. Well, actually, that sounds wrong. I'm not going to finish that sentence. All right, status. A prequel and updated versions of some of the books were published in 2010. And a fun fact, in the updated books, mention of a cassette player was changed to headphones, and a perm became an expensive hairstyle. Oh, come on, a perm is a very specific thing. An expensive hairstyle. I mean, this is literal whitewashing of history, and I feel like I need to start a letter writing campaign. I feel like I'm at that age where that should be like my main hobby or top three. Anyways, Barney and Friends. This brings back bad childhood memories of being bored to tears. So, anyways, I think this is a sign to stop here for today. What happens if I don't? There's my eyes, my glasses. Anyways, I am so glad you hung out, and the 90s was a fun decade, but it wasn't all roses as we see. There were some abominations that transpired in the pop culture realm. So, anyways, good and bad, but all fun to read about. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time, buddy, on Windfall ASMR.